What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. It's a strange time in gaming right now where we're seeing a system like the PS5 go up in price just a couple of years into the generation, and now we actually have Nintendo being asked if the system they've had out for more than 5 years could be going up in price. Well, we do have a response from them. We'll go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about a massive rumor that popped up Friday morning and, just exploded online, where people were going back and forth around the idea of EA being purchased by Amazon. Well, we got to the bottom of that story, but still has people asking many questions. We'll go over that. And we're also going to be talking about the Steam Deck, as it looks like Valve is just getting started with this hardware. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button. Helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're going to start today with PlayStation and Discord, as it does look like the Discord ecosystem will fully find its way to the PlayStation here in the near future. We can see this posted up over on Xputer, who says Sony to integrate Discord voice chat in the coming months. This from Tom Henderson says Discord has become a fundamental application for gaming communities and individuals around the world thanks to its voice over IP and instant messaging features. Now, in this report, Tom Henderson says that in the coming months, we will see the integration of Discord into the PlayStation 5, and I'm kind of picturing it as just an application you'd open and you'd be able to invite people into rooms, message all this. Although it's already in the Xbox, which is weird because you figured it would have gone to PlayStation first since they have an entire partnership with Discord. But with Xbox, there's a few more hoops you have to jump through in order to have Discord fire up on the Xbox. We have to use like the mobile phone app and all of this. So I'm kind of envisioning this to be a bit more straightforward with the application on PlayStation. That's kind of the world I'd like to get to when it comes to crossplay and communication, is you just have Discord on these different systems, Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft, and we can just communicate all with one app while we do crossplay on different games. But seems like that's still a ways off, but it's good to hear that we can expect Discord to be showing up in the next 3 or 4 months on the PlayStation. Also, there was a lot of talk last week when it was revealed that Denuvo was at least developing some sort of anti-piracy measures for Nintendo Switch games, and well, they heard a lot of the criticisms and concerns online, decided to respond multiple times to them. This from Kotaku, who got a couple of quotes from a spokesperson there. Now, when it comes to the performance of the game, they say the protection is designed not to affect the gamer's experience, and it does not have any in-game performance impact. It is the same for this new solution when protection is only active in non-performance critical code parts. Well, we'll see about that one. Now, when asked about always online and DRM check-ins, they say we are aware that the Nintendo Switch is a mobile console and therefore has limited online capabilities, so we designed our solution to be fully offline, no online checks required. Now, one of the quotes, they also mentioned that many third-party developers and publishers requested this sort of DRM to be in a Switch game, and the idea appears to be it would block emulators from being able to access and play these games that are being dumped. Somehow to be built directly into the code, but it can also just be offline. To me, that sounds like something that will just be cracked in 24 hours anyway, so I have a feeling a third-party publisher, developer, they'll probably take a shot at this on the Switch, so we'll find out how that goes then and see if we were right to be skeptical around the performance hit that Denuvo generally brings. Oh, and next month, Valkyrie Elysium is out, and it looks like we could be playing it a bit sooner than we originally thought. We can see this posted up by PlayStation Game Size. Valkyrie Elysium demo version. This looks like the kind of the key art that would show up on the PlayStation Store, or even the icon on like your PlayStation 5 dashboard. I'm pretty excited for this game. The more they've shown about it, the more interested I have been in it, and the idea of a demo kind of makes sense because Square has been doing this for a little while with their games. We just had Diofield Chronicle. That demo is actually pretty lengthy, and the save data will carry over to the full version. I'm fully expecting that here with the Valkyrie Elysium demo, so no word on when this is launching. I assume it's going to be a couple of weeks before the game comes out here in roughly a month, so I'll keep you guys up to date on this one. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with the PlayStation 5 price increase and Nintendo's response to this. Now, last week, I covered this on the second channel with Microsoft responding, essentially saying, no, we're not raising prices in all those different regions that were announced by Sony, which, some of them were pretty hefty increases. Japan is the one that's really being pointed out by a lot of people because there's quite a bit of social media backlash around this for the Japan price increase, which was like 15 or 20%. Like I said, it was pretty large, and a lot of that has to do with the yen being fairly weak right now compared to the US dollar. At least that's the big push that Sony is making right now when it comes to justifying this whole price move. But now we have Nintendo's response, and we know Nintendo, a lot of business in Japan. In fact, if you look at the Japanese sales charts like we'll do with Famitsu, from time to time, I mean, it's basically all Nintendo Switch titles in like the top 10 and like 25 or 26 million Switch systems sold there. But let's take a look. This was Eurogamer who did get the response from Nintendo. The full response reads, as our president, Mr. Furukawa, stated at the 82nd Annual General Meeting of Shareholders in June, while we cannot comment on pricing strategies, we currently do not have any plans to change the price of our hardware due to inflation or increased procurement costs in each country. We will determine our future pricing strategies through careful and continued deliberations. While the final price to consumers is always determined by retailers, as Mr. Furukawa stated, Nintendo has no plans to increase the trade price of its hardware. Now, once again, I have to give it up to the investors who asked these questions, because Sony, I mean, they were pressed by an investor, are you raising the price of the PlayStation? Sony did not answer. So, I mean, they were onto something there. And an investor asked Nintendo about this, as well, as they pointed out here at the shareholders meeting. So some of these investors are really on it here when it comes to looking around and just seeing the general landscape and trying to predict as to what they'll do. They were correct about Sony, so there you go. But with Nintendo and Microsoft, this is probably like the easiest PR win ever. They just do nothing, and they seem to get praised for it because Sony is pushing up the prices basically everywhere but the US. Although I will say, we'll talk about this, the comment of the day at the end of this video, they might have actually kind of raised the price in the US stealthily, and that's kind of the way Nintendo is probably and has kind of already gone about this. They can raise the price of the Switch through new models, like the OLED. They put an OLED screen on it, but like the chip inside, a lot of the internals, didn't change much. Sure, the dock's a bit different, but it also didn't change much. But they moved the price up $50. That is, I would say, the way to go about it if you realize, oh, we have to raise the price of this. How do we do it? You bundle in software, or you change it up a bit, give it a slight facelift with maybe a cool feature like the OLED screen, which, if you have an OLED model, you're probably not running back to that LCD Switch model. It is a pretty big night and day difference there, but for a lot of people, yeah, that $50 difference is worth it. Even though it's more money overall, you feel like you're getting extra value for it, whereas Sony was basically, hey, it's just more money now, that's the way it is. And it's one thing if it's Microsoft who says they're not gonna raise prices. It's Microsoft. They made the entirety of this Activision Blizzard deal, which is what, like $70 billion or something? They made that up in profit last year. Like they, with their fiscal year, like, oh yeah, we just covered that entire deal in one fiscal year. No big deal. Nintendo's smaller, like, obviously, right? Like, even Sony, they're smaller than Sony, just in general revenue overall. You look at all of Sony versus all of Nintendo, yes, Sony is larger. But when it comes to the gaming division, Nintendo is just more profitable across the board than Microsoft and Sony from reported numbers that we have. But still, Nintendo, they don't like to lose money on their systems, and even they're not raising prices, so Sony just looks extremely awkward right now in their position of raising prices up. A bit of weakness, a bit of arrogance, all this kind of mixed together, and who knows if this is going to be something they treat as more of a permanent thing, and hey, you know, the currency exchange rates get maybe even out a bit more, and they just kind of go, well, it's selling still, so we're just leaving it at this price, but I guess we'll see what happens with Sony, especially going into September, because if there's one thing they can do to get people kind of forgetting about some of this price hike, is start showing games, and I think they're getting ready to do that. Next up, let's talk about this massive report that popped up Friday morning, and I mean, it rocked the gaming industry, and it also rocked the stock market as EA's price shot up pre-market. And we can see this post up by Nabellion, who says, rumor Amazon will announce the acquisition of EA today, according to GLHF sources. And this was a couple of hours later, I think it was like 3 hours later, CNBC showed up and said, Amazon not expected to bid for Electronic Arts. In fact, there's an entire video of some of them just kind of laughing about it, where they say there's nothing going on, like, at all. That was it. And then you look back at the USA Today website that kind of hosted the article and report. They have an update saying earlier today, GLHF, a gaming esports outlet and content partner of For the Win, ran a version of this story on our website that violated our editorial standards regarding the use of unnamed and unvetted sources. we have updated the story to remove all mention of those sources. I gotta say, it was a roller coaster that morning. People were like freaking out on Twitter and other social media platforms, like Amazon's buying EA, and it was kind of believable only because I feel like Amazon especially and Google probably noticed, right, Microsoft buying Activision Blizzard. And in this world right now of acquisitions and Amazon and Meta, all this big push towards trying to be the one that invents this new internet with the metaverse. Well, one way in is through entertainment. And after Activision Blizzard went, it's not hard to believe that Amazon would say, well, what's another big publisher and developer in games that would maybe get us into that entertainment field online? That'd be EA. But the big thing here is, even if this rumor has been shot down, as it seems to be, but we'll see. It's always possible that EA and Amazon could have had talks, and maybe they broke down, but the person heard about it early in the talks, and they thought they'd run a report on it. But even so, if EA had reached out to Amazon, I mean, who knows? We could see some other larger company come in to grab EA, especially if they're out there with talks right now about being acquired. And then it comes down to, how much would it cost to get EA? That's a question I saw going around quite a bit. Like, how much would they be valued? Well, I don't think it's Activision Blizzard level. It's probably less than that. But it's hard to say, because their biggest franchises that you really know EA for right now, like year to year, are sports franchises that they have agreements with different leagues for. So those aren't like IPs that they own. So that's a big thing there. I know they do other service-based stuff, but like Battlefield, I feel like hurt them kind of bad. So maybe they are at a position where, not like weak, but weaker than they were before Battlefield came out. So I will say this, I wouldn't be shocked if one day we woke up and there were legitimate reports going around that EA had been purchased by some large company like an Amazon, an Apple. I don't know, could Tencent buy them? I'm sure they could, but like, that's the biggest thing here, is it's still kind of acquisition season. So don't be shocked necessarily if you wake up and hear that EA's been purchased, but maybe hold off until you get multiple reports, not one just kind of randomly shows up at 7 a.m. Eastern time. Next up, let's talk about a Kickstarter project that really caught my attention, and I'm sure many people online, because we see the names Wild Arms and Shadow Hearts in the same Kickstarter. This apparently is like a dual Kickstarter project, which I don't think I've seen before. I don't know if this is like a brand new thing, but essentially we're gonna see some old JRPGs come back in the form of spiritual successors. And so far from what they've shown, I'm very intrigued by this. We could see this posted up by Gamatsu, where they say Wild Arms and Shadow Hearts creators to launch double Kickstarter campaign for spiritual successors, these named Armed Fantasia and Pennyblood. So Armed Fantasia would be the spiritual successor to Wild Arms, and Pennyblood would be the spiritual successor to Shadow Hearts. We have Wild Bunch Productions, that's a company founded by the core team that created Wild Arms, and Yukikaze, a company founded by the core team that created Shadow Hearts, collectively announced spiritual successors. Now, there was some footage actually of Armed Fantasia, and that's the biggest thing here is, I will admit, I'm pretty skeptical of Kickstarter nowadays, just because we've seen so many of them kind of crash and burn or just deliver below average projects, and certainly not what they promise. But the fact that we're seeing screenshots, we have footage, and these are developers who have done it all before, I'm very optimistic around this stuff. I mean, the art style for Pennyblood looks really interesting. They're going for more of a mature tone, whereas Armed Fantasia is going to be kind of like a large open world is what they're going for here. But it's cool to see some of the footage from the battle. It looks stylish, looks good so far. Now, they currently have a mutual funding goal of $750,000. This will secure a PC release for each game. They have stretch goals in mind for the PlayStation 5, the Xbox Series, and whatever Nintendo hardware is available at the time. Like, so let's say this doesn't come out for 3 or 4 years. Yeah, you could potentially see something new from Nintendo that they would then develop for. Now, I'll admit, Shadow Hearts is one that I didn't get as into. I think I've played one game in the series. I did find one recently at a local shop for the PS2, and I'd eventually get to it when I have a chance, since I have the backwards compatible PlayStation 3 for the PS2 games. But Wild Arms, I played several of those actually. I do like the art style and the direction they have here. The open, like large open world is a little concerning when it comes down to a Kickstarter budget, but hey, I mean, if they are really passionate about it, I I have trust in this project. So we'll see. It's supposed to launch today at some point. I'll check it out, and I guess we'll find out how the funding goes and where we are with the stretch goals. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about the Steam Deck, which has been very popular for Valve since it released and opened for pre-orders. They've been working to fill reservations ever since on their Steam client. And now we're starting to hear more and more about the future for the Steam Deck, and it being a multi-generational line of hardware or handhelds for the company. This was posted up. It's like an instructional booklet or introduction for the market in Asia for the Steam Deck, and there are a couple of quotations that are being pointed out here. For example, it says, Steam Deck represents the first in a new category of Steam handheld gaming PCs. In the future, Valve will follow up on this product with improvements and iterations to hardware and software, bring new versions of Steam Deck to the market. They also say this is a multi-generational product line. Valve will support Steam Deck and SteamOS well into the foreseeable future. So it is exciting to think about what would be next and what Valve would have in mind for the Steam Deck, because there are a lot of shortcomings, we'll say, to the first handheld that Valve has attempted, especially at a more reasonable price point. Whereas we saw like Steam machines be, $700, $800, $900, $1,000, and it was essentially a PC that they tried to dress up like a console. This is at least something that has functionality you wouldn't necessarily find with your big gaming tower. It's something you can take with you. And at $400, while it's still, it needs storage, use an SD card, that's still pretty good overall with what you get. So them iterating on it, maybe working on the screen with an OLED model would be pretty cool, or slimming it down, or of course, upgrading the battery. But I do like that they're looking at this as a multi-generational device, because that means in like 3 or 4 years, we might see the next Steam Deck. Is it just called the Steam Deck 2? Do they come up with a new name? I'm not sure. I think the Steam Deck name is good, and then they can kind of build on top of that as they go along. Maybe they have different iterations, one that's just very small and one that's just overly large and heavy, and it's like, hey, you bought this knowing you're basically hauling around a mini PC. But we're going to talk about some of the improvements that they could make in our poll coming up, which we'll go to now. You can see where I ask, which improvement would you like to see the most from a Steam Deck 2? Wow, about half the people said a better battery life, and 21% said more powerful. I was wondering if more people would want it just to be more powerful and have better frame rates overall, or just more capable, but no, it seems like better battery life is the thing. And are people seem okay, I guess, with how the Steam Deck handles games currently. They would just like them to handle it longer. That's something I'm sure that Valve has in mind and could work on, especially as these chips get more and more power efficient. Maybe they have a model that's like the Lite or the Slim, stays at the same capabilities, but gets a 5, 6, 7, 8 hour battery life. I think that's something that people would certainly be interested in there. And then probably people who just want it to be as powerful as possible, and if it's like an hour and a half battery, that's fine. I'll sit next to the outlet. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Kay, saying, even though they claim the price won't go up in the US, I have a theory on how they're going to do a soft price increase. I noticed on the PlayStation Direct site, they don't have the original consoles available. You can, however, get the version of both consoles bundled with a copy of Horizon for $50 more. My guess is that you won't see them without a bundled game going forward. You're absolutely right. I actually think they kind of have increased the price in the US. They just haven't said anything about it because they bundled software with it, which, if you look at it, it's a $70 game, and it's a very good game. I liked Horizon quite a bit. It took me like 55 hours to beat it, and I think it's a game that basically anyone who has a PS5 should look into, because it does show off the capabilities of the system like really no other game they have right now in their first-party lineup would do. But yeah, it's $50 more. And in fact, it's been available on this PlayStation Direct site for days now. Like, people are saying it's really hard to find a PS5. It's just available. You can just go on there, sign in, order, and it'll show up in your door in a couple of days. So I kind of think this is the route Sony's going to go in the US. You just won't see the $500 basic, disc-based system, or $400 digital version of the PS5. You'll see the $450 digital bundle, and you'll see the $550 disc-based bundle, and that's just kind of the way they're going about it in the US, but strangely, not in other parts of the world. They just sent out the press release, said you gotta pay more, and that's that. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today, where there's Nintendo and Microsoft's response to the PS5 price increase. Do you think we will see the Switch and the Xbox go up in price at some point, or they're just gonna stick to their word, just kind of hang out at this price, or maybe even inch introduce a newer model at some point for more money? And also, what about EA? Do you think they will be purchased here in the near future? Maybe not by Amazon, but by someone else? Then the Steam Deck. What would be the big improvement you'd want to see for a future iteration of the hardware? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.